welcome to both of you. Sanjana and Dhruv, thanks a lot for joining us. I'm really excited for you to share your story with me and everyone who will be watching. Sanjana and Dhruv are based in Delhi, and they do not look like it, but they had their baby just about a week back, in the midst of all the madness that's going on right now, and which is why I requested them to share their story. They've even gone through COVID, so been through a lot through their pregnancy, but did have a positive birth, I would say. And so we want to hear more about how that was for you. So over to you, Sanjana and Dhruv. Start from the beginning for us.
So I can talk a bit about when we found out we were pregnant. For me, I had very honestly heard a lot of stories about being pregnant in Delhi because having known a lot of pregnant friends and moms, for me the general knowledge was, I mean, what I knew was that birth in Delhi was a hospital situation, and from what I knew, 100% cesarean situation, which is something that growing up I always thought that was not going to be the norm for me. I always wanted a natural birth, and I always wanted a natural pregnancy, and to just do it as kind of old school and casually as possible. So when we actually got pregnant, I was looking around for resources and ways in which to make that happen, which also meant finding a doctor that kind of supported that belief, because I'd heard a lot about that little bit of kind of like medical fear and friction against something could go wrong. So usually doctors opt for cesareans, is what I'd heard. So I kind of set about looking for the right doctor. My pregnancy started off with some really bad nausea. So we looked around a bit, and we kind of hobbled around and from back to forth with doctors, and finally found someone who suited us really well. And in that journey as well, a friend of mine told me about you, Neha, and I literally jumped on the chance. I said that this is it, like this is the support I need in terms of having a more like spiritual, holistic experience for this pregnancy and childbirth. And that's when I got in touch with you, and we took it from there. I think I was in touch with you in my first trimester. I didn't even wait. Usually people say you wait till you're in your second, third. What's the need? But I didn't wait. I said I want to, there's so much I want to know, and we were curious about so much. So I got in touch with you, and yeah, the pregnancy progressed, and we went along that way. And of course, there was a lot of anxiety back and forth with COVID. Like, not so much, I think, with the first wave. I think we were more relaxed about it. We were even going out, meeting people, meeting friends, because we didn't want to, first, close friends. We didn't want to kind of stifle ourselves. So we did that. When the second wave hit, of course, there was like this huge wave of fear and stress. Um, so I think for during the second wave, I definitely had a fear that COVID would be a, a reality that would come knocking on the door very soon. And we did get it. I got it, actually started off with me getting it. And again, like I said, support system is everything. We were so lucky that our doctor, her first response was, it's okay, it's fine, just chill, drink water. I didn't even think about medication. I didn't even think about the option, the fact that I couldn't take any medication. It didn't really strike my mind even what would happen if I needed it. It just didn't come to me, because my doctor from the offset and you from the offset was just like, chill, you'll recover, just drink water, hydrate, do what you need to do. And that's exactly what I did.
And sorry, I just also want to add here, I think that's the really important part, that your support system around you needs to empower you. So, with regards to our doctor and Neha, we got the right support system that, there's nothing to worry about until there's something to worry about. So, when we messaged our doctor saying, look, we both got COVID, what is there anything we need to do, or is there anything that we should worry about? Literally, her response was, you've got nothing to worry about. Just do this, which was standard,
drink water, kind of, relax.
Yeah, just best business, best practices. And we followed those, and it gave us a sense of calm and relief that the infrastructure around us was keeping us calm. It wasn't, getting us riled up. And I think even if there is an infrastructure around you which is maybe too paranoid, it could be family members, it could be some uncle doctor who's blowing things out of proportion. It's really important to stay empowered through just get your information right, not through the news. Just get your information right, empower yourself, and just follow all the best
and
practices.
also not panic. I think that's the main thing. Luckily for what I think we were able to do with Dhruv and me together is just not panic. We were both together, like alone in the house, and we have animals. We have 3 pets, so that kind of also, like we were
took
just
took
the edge off. We felt safe in a bubble. We took care of each other because honestly, when there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to do. There isn't. I mean, especially with Corona, yeah.
In fact, I think I want to highlight what you said, Dhruv, is that get your information right, not from the news, because the fact is that the news is sensational. It's meant to be, and the stories that we hear in the news and in social media are the really worst stories. But the fact is that most women do okay, and if you're generally healthy and you don't have any specific signs that your doctor has asked you to look for, there is no need to panic. It is the panic that causes more harm, and the way to do that is to surround yourself by people who are like that, and by not exposing yourself to news or other influencing factors that create that. So thanks so much for sharing that, and that is the only way. There is no other way.
And literally that's actually what our doctor verbatim, what our doctor messaged Sanjana saying. Most importantly, don't overthink. Don't just constantly keep thinking about the virus. And I think that was such a poignant thing to say, because I think once we did that and we just focused on just getting better and doing what we needed to do to get better, that our focus wasn't on the hysteria and the anxiety and the stress, and it was just about it's exactly a 10-day 12-day kind of a deal. We're young, we
give it time, and it will kind of and it's also a lot. I mean, I was also very fortunate that I was part of a group of really great women led by a really great doctor, a workout group. And it just so happened that that group of women happened to be around the country at that time. And I think a majority of us, maybe 80 or 90% of us, had COVID in separate parts of the country. And so there was kind of a network of support. And I reached out to the first girl who recovered, and she kind of like said, relax, it's fine, I drank water, sure you get tired, and sure this. And it's about your support system and what everyone's attitude is. Like, we had friends who were kind of freaking out, like, oh my god, you have COVID, like what's going to happen? But the underlying thing for us was like, yeah, it's happened. In fact, to be very honest, I was even a bit relieved. I think we were both a bit relieved, because we were more anxious about getting COVID at the time of delivery, just to be separated and to have not be able to have Dhruv there in time of labor. That was maybe more of a concern for both of us than actually getting COVID. But we were like, even if that happens, it happens. There is nothing that anyone can do or control in this kind of situation. You do what you can, you take your precautions. And if something happens, you get COVID, you deal with it at that time, whether it's delivery or before. But I think we were kind of happy that it happened before, and we were able to ride it out together and get past it together. And like, we watched TV and we ate food, and we had again friends who sent us food every day, 3 meals a day. We were sorted. So with a lot of love and a lot of like calm support and good healthy sound support, we were able to get through it, and we honestly didn't think too much about it at all.
And the mind will play tricks on you. What's that saying? If you look, you will find. So at the minute you have COVID, you suddenly are like, oh, my right toe is hurting, is there something wrong with it? I'm feeling a headache on my shoulder. You start thinking of these crazy things that
could be,
that starts steamrolling. They start snowballing. So it's just important just to be calm, just be calm, be relaxed,
and stay happy. That's the main thing. Stay positive. Because at the end of the day, you're still pregnant. You're still in your pregnancy. Just be happy. Don't let the panic get to you. You're still a family. You're still together. You're still what counts is still there. So nothing has been taken away from you in terms of that. Which is the main thing. Like, for me, we were so full of gratitude that we were able to do this together. Like that we both got sick together and we were able to look after each other, and we were able to kind of ride it out together without like, snapping at each other and going crazy.
Yeah, and that's another level of gratitude when you're thankful for having COVID.
Yeah.
I think if you look at it from a spiritual way, it was really an experience that got you both to spend time together, work on this challenge together.
All three of us, actually.
All three of us.
Yeah. Also, I would say prepare you for labor and birth. That sense of surrender and trusting your body and not overthinking and trusting that your body is wise and your baby is wise. That is your birth preparation. So
absolutely,
for whatever it was meant to happen to teach you something. And if you look at challenges from this perspective, you can deal with any challenge in life.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell us, how did it go after that? How did it affect the way you planned your birth in any way? What were your plans and how did your birth go?
In terms of our plans, it just kind of sort of solidified what we didn't want in terms of a birth. We did not want to go into a kind of like a big hospital scenario. We wanted a smaller COVID-free facility. We were fortunate enough that because we had already had COVID, we knew that for certainty we were able to do that, and we would not test positive at the time of delivery, and we have to be rushed to like a COVID hospital.
And sorry, I know, I think also just really important to add here, I think it's super important to do a round of where you're going to be giving, where you're going to be giving birth. For the mom, like the moms to be, I think,
100%.
being comfortable in the surrounding. And when we went to the first, very large establishment, which is almost like it's like a factory line with thousands of people, in and out.
Mostly where people tend to feel safe.
Yeah. And I think that we just went there, and initially the first reaction was, wow, there are so many people here. Wow, this is like a factory line.
And also, wow, this is not happening.
Yeah.
I can't have my baby here. I can't go through labor here. I don't know what labor is. I've never done it before, but I know that this is not feeling right. This is not right. And in fact, a lot of people did tell me that, are you sure? What if something goes wrong? That's one thing that I've heard since the beginning of my pregnancy is, what if something goes wrong? I initially wanted to do a home birth. The only reason we didn't do a home birth is because Duke and I were like, we have a lot of neighbors and they'll hear us. They'll hear me. So I said that would be very awkward for us to continue to live here. So let's not choose to do a home birth. But everyone was telling me, and my friends especially were like, Sanjana, we know you. Please don't do this at home. You need to go into a hospital and don't do your hippie ways and don't do this, natural thing. And are you sure? Don't like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, guys, relax. I mean, I want to do it at home, but I won't. So,
and I think, and just in extension of that, I think some of the worst advice that anyone can give is, what if something goes wrong?
Absolutely.
Because that is the most arbitrary, vague piece of advice, because in the probably the most natural process known to humankind, which is childbirth, yes, something can go wrong, but something can go wrong when you're crossing the road. Something can go wrong while you're eating food. You can choke, and something can go wrong. Something can go wrong for anything in your life. The focus, unfortunately, is on the wrong things. The focus is not on the majority; it's on the minority of occurrences. The untoward that happens, and that's, I think, the shift of half glass empty, half glass. Actually, it's not even glass half empty. It's like glass 99% full, and we're focusing on that 1%.
I mean, look around you. Everywhere you look around you, there is a human being. That human being has emerged because of childbirth. There's nothing more natural. It's as natural as, and way more painful, but it's as natural as breathing. There is nothing more natural that has been happening since the beginning of time. It is creation and birth, and it has been made into the most medicalized, frightening occurrence. It's a painful experience, and it is a powerful experience, and it's an experience that my mom told me that, oh, you forget the pain. And let me say right here, you don't forget the pain. I will never forget the pain. Like, I will never forget the pain, but I will always remember the experience. And
how empowered.
And how empowering it is. Like, I mean, that was the one reason why I wanted to do a natural delivery. And people ask me, especially my friends, are like, why are you doing this? Like, are you crazy? Why do you want to do this? And for me, the constant was, it is something that I want to experience because I know my body can experience it. And I wouldn't do it if for me, it felt like a rite of passage. Like it felt like a rite of passage, and it felt like this is my prerogative. This is my I'm entitled to, as a mother, as a woman, as someone who's chosen to bring a child into this world. It is my right to experience this, and if I don't experience this, how will I ever know what I'm capable of?
And nobody should be able to take that away from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And no one should fear that away from you. Up to the last minute, when we booked our the hospital, we finally did do our delivery in, which is a non-COVID facility. And I was, people were asking, where have you finalized? And I said, it's a smaller facility, it's a non-COVID facility. It's kind of like in between nursing home, hospital. It's a great facility. It's a hospital. It's a fully equipped hospital. The standard question was, but if something goes wrong, are they fully equipped to deal with it? And I was like, yes, there's an operation theater. We have a great doctor. We are in excellent hands. You have to keep reassuring people that medically I'm sound, even though we were about to do something which is not a medical procedure. Childbirth is not a medical procedure. I was not a patient. I mean, you're not a patient when you're a mother. You're giving birth to your child. You're not signing a register and saying that I'm a patient now. Stick an IV in me. That's not what it is. And unfortunately, that's the current scenario.
I'm feeling so nice to hear this coming from somebody else. Thanks so much. And I think the key takeaway in this, what you just spoke about, is that there are going to be people around to make you more afraid, to put these fears into your head. How can you tune out of all that noise and really listen to your heart, to your gut, and what your body is telling you, because that never lies. So like what you said, where you walked into this hospital and it's reputed and they have so many births, and but something told you that this is not where I want to give birth. And I think every decision that you took, you trusted your body, you trusted your gut, you trusted your instinct. And trust me, I mean, nothing is wiser than your true instinct. It's really, if you just learn to do that. And the beauty is that, like I said earlier, it teaches you to be a better parent. Now your child is you're going to have these situations all the time. Absolutely. And you don't have answers, but you have an instinct that will guide you.
Absolutely. And I think what we've been fortunate about, also another thing that that's worked for us, is that both Dhruv and I have very deliberately made choices throughout the pregnancy.
Ourselves, actually, and not allowed anyone else to make them for us.
Yes. And even deciding to have a child was a deliberate choice. Even taking on this responsibility was a deliberate choice. We knew what came with it. We knew, even as new parents now, when you're a new parent, you're up at like 3 a.m. for the 5th night in a row, and you're like, I made this choice, because a lot hits you, and there's a lot of emotions, and there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of adjustment that happens. But you got here making a lot of sound decisions together as a unit, as a couple who decided to be parents to another human being and shape, mold, and take on that responsibility willingly, and knowing exactly what it means and what it takes. And we were able to give each other that support and strength. And I mean, I do still tell Dhruv this daily since I gave birth, is that I would not have done it without his support. Like, if I did not have him in that delivery room with me, I probably would have caved. Like, I probably when the pains really come, you want to cut yourself open. You want to tell your doctor, doc, take me in and just do whatever you want with me. But because we got here together, because we made these decisions together, and he knew what I wanted, he knew why we chose this, and he knew that I wanted to experience this. He was able to remind me of that time and time again. He was able to remind me of the fact that we chose this, we are here because we want this, because I can do it, and he's here to help me do it. And I think that's a really important thing that I would really stress upon, is when you decide to be parents, strengthening your bond as a couple is a really, really important thing. Knowing your common value system, knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it is very, very important, and supporting each other in doing what you need to do is extremely important. And that unwavering support is really what gets you through everything, whether it's COVID stress to childbirth to labor to sleepless nights. It's really what it's about.
And I just want to add here, I think that's something really important that Sana has touched upon is that, you know, especially in the Indian context, there's a lot of, you know, supporting cast. There's parents, there's grandparents, there's
Chacha,
uncles,
chachi,
aunts,
mami, taya, tai.
and in our context specifically, it's very difficult to kind of step out of that shadow and say, you know what, this is now something we have to do ourselves. And I think that's a really, really important step, from the smallest things like just regular checkups with the doctor, to going for your ultrasounds, to making sure the medicines are correct, if at all any, to supporting each other in
to your pregnancy diet, what you want to eat,
diet, you know, through all those things. It's really important to together do those things without external help, because the responsibilities are only going to, you know, increase as you get closer and closer to the delivery date. And then there's the, you know, the climax of the delivery, and then post that, then it's just, you know, then it's another whole you know, school of universe of responsibility.
Then it really begins.
Then you're at zero. Then you're at, you know, really starting point. At the starting line.
That's the beauty of this process. It is transformative not only for the birthing mother who's transforming into a mother, but it transforms the relationship. It takes a relationship to a different level, and it's meant to. I mean, that's when you're able to parent your child together, being all the things that you said, Sanjana, being on the same page, being there for each other, and being able to make choices for yourself.
You know, something Sana had touched on before, saying that I couldn't have done it without, that she couldn't have done it without me. I strongly disagree with that. And there was a point in the delivery where it had become really, really difficult when she was, you know, just close to pushing, and, you know, she was like probably at 8 or 9 centimeters dilated, where she was like kind of almost delirious. That was a point where, you know, and again, it's not like something was, you know, like there was some inspiration in me that these very wise words came out. Again, these wise words came from another mother who is my sister, and she had messaged on the group. And obviously, because Sana was in labor, she didn't get a chance to read that message. But I told her that, look, this is the point at which you have to go inside yourself, dig deep, and go to that part every single woman has inside her. Reach out to that part, reach out to that strength in every single woman, and take your strength from there.
Which was so beautiful. That was what his sister messaged, saying that go to that place where every woman draws her strength from. And that really, like, when Dhruv told me that, I was like,
like Bollywood scene. This is where the pushing began.
That's the power of actually using the right words at the right time and meaning it and believing it and what it does.
Truly.
And so just to say that that strength is in every single woman, whether her husband is there to support, not support. I'm sure that every you know, mother here who's, you know, got a supportive husband, that's why they're probably, you know, watching this. But whether you're there able to, you know, because say COVID circumstances, because that was something that Sana and I also prepared for. What if one of us gets COVID? Sana's, you know, she's going to be doing the delivery alone. So I have that full faith that, you know, this strength is within each woman, that whether you're on your own, there's, you know, no need to get anxiety and stress that you're going to be doing it on your own. You have that strength inside you. You can do it. I've seen it, and I've been in awe of it, which I'll tell you about now. So yeah, I think Sana's contraction started at about 4 o'clock in the morning.
A week ago, exactly.
A week ago. She woke me up at about 5. We have a little, you know, inside joke that, you know,
it's not an inside joke, it's a reality. Dhruv just 2 days ago had told me that, look, Dhruv is an early riser, so he likes waking up at about 5, 6 in the morning and starting his day fresh and kind of getting to bed by 11. So he said, he had asked, I think he had asked you, Neha, that is it a myth, or does it actually happen that labor starts at night?
Now, and, you know, Neha, why I asked that question.
And you had said yes, because of the oxytocin and you know, the melatonin. And so that day, right after we spoke to you, Dhruv, at night, we were lying in bed, and he said, look, can you try not to start your contractions like at night, and can you start labor in the morning, because the whole routine goes haywire then, you know, like, we won't sleep through the night, and then I'll be tired, and then all of that would happen, and we won't be fresh the next day. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I sure.
But the baby definitely heard that.
100%. 100%.
And especially after the fact that you said it's only about 10% of the cases that, you know, the labor starts in the morning. I was very, very impressed that Sana stuck to our schedule.
Yeah. So Literally 4 a.m. is when the pain started, and I had been in touch with you, Neha, a few days before, and it was pre-labor, so we kind of thought that maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't happen, didn't know. And at about 4 a.m., things started to feel like, okay, this could be a contraction. So I said, let me just give it some time and wait. And then at about 4:30 or like 4:15, I knew that they were at intervals. So I said, okay, this is something. And then I said, should I wake Dhruv up? I said, let's give him some time. He said not to wake him up. Let's wake him up at about 5:30, so his day can actually start. So I let him sleep till about 5, I think 5:30, and that's when I woke him
I
up.
think that's a really good strategy to let your partner at least get some sleep so that he's there for you at the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What was he going to wake up and do anyway?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, so when we started logging the contractions. There's actually very cool apps online on on the Google Store and iStore and stuff, iTunes. So just had one of those because it's easier than having to write it and time it and then back calculate and stuff. So it's super easy. Just click. It's one button. Click when it starts. Click when it stops, and it just logs the average amount of.
Dhruv was doing it like we were running a marathon. Like he was like, should I start? Should I start? Okay.
Why aren't you telling me it stops?
Should I start?
You have to tell me when it stops.
I'm like, I'm going through a little bit of pain here. I'm sorry, I haven't told you exactly when to start.
Well, I think it gives him something to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm just I would feel useless. I have now one button to press every now and again. Like I'm also a part of this. They first started at about 10-12 minutes out on average, and the contraction was initially for about 30 seconds or so. As time was progressing, 6, 7, 8, 9, the contractions were closer. So the average time was coming down from 10 minutes to about 8, 7, 6, and the contractions were becoming slightly longer, maybe not proportionately, but they were getting longer, like 35 seconds,
and
40
definitely
seconds,
more
45
painful.
seconds. And I could obviously more painful. This is at the time at which we reached out to Neha. We reached out. I mean, we actually around
had been in touch
6, 7 o'clock. We had reached out to Neha. We had reached out to our doctor just to let them know the contractions that started. I think that's super important. We got some amazing, tips from Neha and Sonia about, what kind of positions can potentially help. When the contraction start. So I was looking at them. I was,
and Dhruv kept telling me, try this and try that.
We tried a bunch of different positions, and then everyone, I think, will find. A mother will find what works for her specifically. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. So Sana found the position which was comfortable for her, which was on all fours, and it was going back and forth. And then there was another one which was holding the ball. So
the ball really helped me, and the back massage really helped me as well.
And I think maybe at that stage also it's the gravity, the gravity changes, because instead of staying upwards, you're on all fours. So maybe that also helps with changing the position of the baby. Again, no data points here. This is just what my gut said. And then we stayed at home, and I think fantastic. The best advice from Neha was, Sanjana will know when she's ready to go to the hospital. And another great, I don't remember the sequence of when I got the advice, but because it was I was there was a lot going on. But another great piece of advice was, one was that she'll know when to go, and the second was, don't ask her, is it painful? How painful is it? Just to support her, to tell her that you're doing really well. I think one thing that was also working was, because I use this a lot in the gym, which is, there's only 30 seconds left, only 15 seconds left, only this. So I would only start saying that to her after we reach the halfway point. So which then I would say, not long left now, it's nearly over, over. And then it would, I think that like would keep her going, knowing that, it's about to end really quick.
I think if I can just, one amazing thing about laboring at home, which we would actually not have thought of if we hadn't been in touch with you, Neha, is we have 3 amazing animals who we love, and they were with us, and our dog especially was by my side throughout the labor. I think from 4 a.m. to noon is when I labored at home, and she didn't leave my side. She was by me, so concerned. And it was really beautiful. Honestly, it was a really, really beautiful experience for me to be at home in our bedroom, going through labor. And I remember when I woke Dhruv up and I said, my contractions have started, and I think they could be following a pattern. And so he looked and he said that, are they contractions or are they just cramps? I said, no, I think they're contractions. So he's saying, does that mean the baby's coming? So I said, yeah. And he was happy, you know, like he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, you know, what a great reaction, because usually it's like, you hear of husbands being like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And he was like, oh, yay. Okay, you know, that means that, yeah. So I was like, okay, great. Like, let's do this. And
that's your oxytocin bubble right there.
Absolutely. It was beautiful, honestly, just being in the bedroom. And, you know, like he would bring me bread and toast and toast and jam, and I'd have a bite here and there. And a dog would come in or a cat would come in, and you know, it was just a beautiful experience. It was like a normal day, a normal morning, just going through labor pains. And it was just really comfortable. It was really cozy. It was great. It was really lovely.
Yeah, and I think, and we also, I mean, we learned this as well, that, you know, try and stay at home as long as is possible. And it was, the time was actually flying by. I don't know if it was
It was actually, it really was.
When we left, I couldn't believe that we were at home for 8 hours in labor, you know, before we left for the hospital. And I think that's hugely because of the comfort zone we had at home, lights dim. You know, things like, you know, we say, okay, you know, we'll have some music thing and stuff. None of that happened because we totally forgot about it. But we, like Sana said, we had our pets, we had, you know, each other, we had our comfortable bedroom, which we are used to. You know, Sana could go in and out for a shower. You have that level of flexibility and, you know, to do what you want, because the minute you enter the hospital scenario, there's a psychological shift. There's, you know, I'm not at home anymore. Now it's a bit more medicalized. You know, there's the monitor on me.
It does happen.
You know, it's not as, it's exactly like you said, it's not that bubble of comfort that you have, which is also okay. I mean, you eventually have to get there. I think we just felt so comfortable doing it together. From, you know, that, you know, we managed at home. In fact, more than manage, we really did well at home. Sana naturally knew. I mean, of course, I was also timing the contractions. Sana knew herself that, okay, you know, now I'm kind of ready to go. We were ready to go, I think, roughly at about 5 minutes apart or something. 5.5 minutes apart is when we, you know, of course, we had everything ready in terms of most of our bags and, you know, this and that, everything was ready, had that put in the car. We both had a shower, got ready, left for the hospital at about 12 o'clock. Got into the hospital, went straight to the labor room. Doctor came in and checked Sana. By the time we got there, Sana was already 3 to 4 centimeters dilated.
Which seemed like really little to me. Like, I was like, are you joking? I was like, seriously, that's it? I was hoping I'd be like 7 centimeters and like, oh, you only have like an hour to go. I was like, what?
And that's the best part, when the doctor told her, oh, right now, so you have a lot more to go and a lot more pain too. That's what I was like, what do you mean more pain? But we got in there, and in fact, our doctor was so happy. She was so impressed. She just said that, you know, you guys have done, I mean, by you guys, I don't know why she said guys, basically Sana's done, she said, you've done 50% of the work yourself. Now it's just, you know, we just sit and wait a little while longer, and you know, should be ready soon. And I think from 12 o'clock onwards, it was from 12 to 4 that now the contractions again started getting very intense. Again, time periods started getting shorter and shorter and shorter between the contractions, and the contractions started getting really longer. And we moved up to a point where it was about, on average, 1.5 to 2 minutes apart, and the contractions were 1.5 to 2 minutes long. So at this point, you know, the pain was severe. But again, this is the point where, you know, the pain was, it was a lot. I could tell, because, you know, she was also, you know, she hadn't slept all night, contractions for 8 hours. Then, you know, now the really severe contractions starting. So I could see she was, it's that exhaustion that was setting in, where she was, you know, kind of in and out, and, you know, getting frustrated and getting a bit irritable as well. And this was the time where where you have to sense, you have to read the situation, you have to read your wife, because you're the only person who can. And this is the time where I could see that, you know, she was like kind of in and out, where the focus wasn't there anymore. And that's when I, like, you know, just held her, and I said that, you know, you've got to dig deep. there's inside each and every woman, there's a strength inside that you have to reach out to, your own specific strength. Now focus and reach out to it. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. You've done it all. This is the final stretch. And I could literally see her eyes refocus, and as if she's coming back from a stupor. Like she came back from the stupor, she said, yes, okay. And then she started, focusing more, breathing with the contractions. Yeah, like she was much more present, and she knew, okay, now is time. It's, it's the final part of the,
this is
of the journey.
Yeah.
And that's when the doctor came back in at that 2 minutes apart, 2 minutes contraction. And by then she was 9 centimeters, 9 centimeters dilated. And then it was very quick after that. Like that's, at that point, it's, it's
a blur. Then it's just like, I'm so happy to have something to do.
Yeah.
And let's do this. And yeah.
And you should tell, what it was after that. Because
yeah. And I mean, also just to say, to add a little bit, like, I remember when we did our Lamaze class, and you mentioned that there is a point where the pain gets so intense where the woman kind of goes into herself. And I knew that was what was happening when I was kind of in that delirium. I knew I was kind of like going into myself, but I also knew at that point of time, I was getting shaky. Like I was breaking to a point where I was losing my strength, and I was kind of thinking, am I capable of this? I had started to question myself. And
Sanjana, that's exactly the rite of passage that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, and I was thinking, the reason I was in and out is because I'm thinking to myself, am I built to do this? Can I do this? Really, like, I don't think I can do this. And I was so close to saying, I can't do this. I was looking at Dhruv and he's looking at me, and we both knew that these could potentially be the words that come out of my mouth, which could be, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't say it. And I think before I could say it, he kind of brought me back and reminded me that why we were here and why we were doing this. And that's one thing that I want to mention and stress upon is trust, and knowing your partner is someone who knows what you are capable of. Like, and I said this repeatedly, that sometimes you, especially when you're in that kind of situation, you forget what you're capable of. And very often it has, to share a very real experience, even motherhood has been that for me. I think the first or second day when we were back home, I was just thinking to myself, can I do this? Like, do I have it in me to be a mother, and do I have it in me to handle this emotion response? Of course, you're hormonal and you don't know really, you're not thinking straight, and you feel like, I personally felt like the walls are closing in on me. And I even had a moment of like, Dhruv, what have we gotten ourselves into? And I immediately went and spoke to him, and I said that, I don't know. And it was the same thing in that labor room. It was that same moment where you question, am I built for this? Can I do this? And that's when your partner counts. That's when your partner can remind you that you are who you thought you were. You are capable of, you might have forgotten it temporarily, but let me pull you back and let me remind you of the fact that you can do this. And it is so important to have someone you can trust. Like, I've never doubted Dhruv for a second in terms of, I know he can get me through this, and in terms of just life in general, of course, but especially in terms of pregnancy and labor, I never doubted that if anything were to happen, I'm 100% safe. I'm 100% safe. I have 100% trust in this scenario. So I never thought to myself that he won't know what to do in the situation, or the fact that I sat there in that pain is because I was in full trust. I was in full trust that he will know what to do, and he will, whether it means encouraging me or whether it means wheeling me into a OT, he will know what to do. And trust is very, very important in this whole process, because it's important for you, it's important for the baby, it's important for the couple. It's just generally one of the most important things. It takes you through it, and it was what took me through the process for sure.
And I think that's really, really important to know that every single woman on this planet is capable of it. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm absolutely astounded and in awe of what mothers are capable of. It's inspiring. It's truly, truly inspiring. You are nothing less than like a lioness, a ferocious lioness.
Yeah, you really roar.
And you roar. That is not screaming out of pain. That is a roar.
It is a roar.
And you should know that even if you make a decision to to do a C-section or to take epidural or anything, that's a choice, and you have every single right to that choice. 100%. There's no judgment. You should not judge yourself. You should not allow anyone else to judge you, but you should know that you can do it, and knowing that you're making the choice.
Absolutely.
Just that no woman should think I can't do it, that's why I'm making this choice. Absolutely. That's really, really important.
Never doubt yourself, because that for me is the saddest thing. For me is the saddest thing, to have that doubt that I'm doing this because I can't do it, or I'm not capable. I want to, but I don't want, but I can't. That's not true. It's not true, because I mean, look around you. Like I said, every person here is standing and alive because a woman birthed them and brought them into this world, and that is the power. That is. I mean, like, I know, like, we tend to sound borderline spiritual, but that is what it is. Like, there is nothing more spiritual than birthing a child. There is nothing more spiritual than going through this experience, because, like, the first thing I told you is that for me, that experience was dying and coming back to life. And what can be more spiritual than that? Like, what can be more spiritual than leaving this realm and coming back with new life? It is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It is, like I said, I'll never forget the pain, but I'll also never forget the experience, because
the
glory of that experience. Like, it's one of the worst, but one of the most incredible and best experiences any woman can have the privilege of having in her life. I feel that you don't come back the same. You never come back the same. You really become aware of your power. You really become aware of the power and strength you hold in your family, and how the power you have to nurture your family and to nurture yourself and your child and your husband, and everything, really. And it's beautiful.
I completely hear you, because I mean, that's why I do what I do, because I have that experience too, and it's such a personal experience. And it's hard for anyone to relate to until you've been through it.
Absolutely.
But it is about trust, and it is about support, both being the key factors in your birth experience. And you worked on them both. They don't come very easily. Trust is built over a period of time. Support is also built. You choose and you work on the support, and that's exactly what everything that you spoke about right now talks of. I have nothing more to say. You guys are absolutely awesome. Tell us a little bit about your last 1 week, right after the baby was born.
So we want to talk about your 1 week, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, whether it's the pregnancy, the delivery, or post childbirth, I think the fathers are always the supporting act. The film stars and the movie stars, the superstars are the mothers. And if you really look closely, you see at each point they are doing the heavy lifting, and biologically that's just how it is. There's not much else we can do about it, but what we can do is be the cheerleaders who make sure that we're cheering them on to do what they do best. So I think post our son being born, Sana was up on her feet 1 hour after the delivery. She was in a position to even walk back to our room. The first, I think the first couple of hours he was just quiet and sleeping, and there wasn't much going on. But the minute the first cry happened, I looked at Sana looked at me, and we were like, okay, what do we do now?
What do we do? Like, we have a child.
What is, like, what do we do?
What is the protocol? Is there a guidebook? Like, is someone going to come and explain to us how we need to raise this child?
We literally had absolutely no clue as to why. Literally, that what is step one? We had no clue that now he's here.
No matter how many books you read, no matter how many classes you've attended,
no idea.
No clue. And luckily for us, the facility we went to was just so nice that the minute he cried, literally it was like those movies, like this light shine down from the heavens, and an angel in the form of a nurse just walked in, picked him up, showed us what to do.
Here's how you feed him. Here's how you hold him.
Helped us with the diapers, the first few times to show us how it's done, showed us how to swaddle, showed us how to burp. So those first if in the first few hours you have no clue what to do, it's totally normal.
The first few months, days,
yeah.
I don't know how long it lasts.
Yeah, I mean, we're still just like Ram Bharose right now.
Yeah.
So, but especially in the first few hours, it was just totally,
Yeah.
you know, like you're thrown into a World Cup
You're also
final.
like riding on
no
a high.
training.
You've just done
Yeah.
this thing, and you're just like, okay, now after this, I actually have like a child now to look after for the rest
Yeah.
of his or her and my life, and you know, how do we do this? Let's begin. So yeah.
Yeah, and the nurse came, and nurse was, you know, the staff was. I think that's also really important, you know, just to have,
Yeah.
again, that we didn't have our parents or anyone with us
COVID, yeah.
because of COVID, because no one else was allowed there. But again, you know, that's the beauty of, I think,
Really.
why we're able to give this, you know, advice, that we've only had each other
Yeah.
throughout this journey.
We were
And,
so
and not
happy. Yeah.
and not to say we haven't had our parents and a support system. We've actually been very lucky with fantastic parents, fantastic friends who have allowed us to be on this journey, to be in the driver's seat of this journey. So so it was again just the two of us at the hospital. The nurse kept, you know, supporting us and helping us with you know, for the first couple of days till we got the hang of it. Then we got the hang of it, you know, after the basic stuff.
The first day, yeah, we were there for a day. We were
exactly.
We were in the hospital for a day, and we kind of just wanted to come home.
The next day.
Yeah,
the
next day
we got in at 12 o'clock, 12 p.m. on day one, on the 14th. Sorry, on the 14th.
He was born at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and on the 15th at 6 p.m. we were out of the hospital. So
yeah,
that's again the awesome part of you know, the natural delivery.
Yeah,
it's Sana was on her feet walking within 1 hour.
Yeah, and also again support. Like I really have to. We haven't stressed enough on how amazing our doctor was, and
Yeah.
One amazing thing we did with our doctor was Dhruv and I really connected with our doctor from the very beginning, and there were some issues in terms of you know, she, at the end of the day, she's a gynecologist and obstetrician. She's used to doing deliveries. She's used to C-sections. She's a medical professional. So her job is to investigate and tell you if something can go wrong and how she can minimize your pain, and how she can do things in a medicalized manner. And we were able to kind of bond with her, and she opened up to us, and we opened up to her, and we discussed our birth plan with her very, very early on. And we developed a rapport, and we all just got along, and she got us, she understood us, we understood her. And that helped us so much, from being in the delivery room to her trusting us, to her letting us do labor at home, to a lot of everything was dependent on the fact that we built that bond with her, we connected with her. And that's what we wanted. You know, when we went around looking for doctors, we found doctors who gave us 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 3 minutes, wrote us a prescription and sent us home. And we were like, this is not what we want. We don't want someone. I don't want to take a medication for, I don't want medicine for my nausea. My nausea is also it's a experience. Women go through it. So our doctor would give us an hour every time in her clinic. She'd block an hour for us. The appointment would finish, we'd be chatting about this and that. And we were so lucky in that as well. And we built that bond with her, that even when I wanted to leave, I said, Doc, can we leave? You know, we want to go home. She said, usually 48 hours is what we would book you in for. But she said, yeah, you want to go home, you go home, I'll clear you, you go.
I mean, obviously, in the sense that
you're
everything
fine.
is
Yeah,
fine. There's
everything
no
is
reason,
fine.
no reason for you to be here for 48 hours, so you're good to go. Neha, the conversations that you and I were having independently of the group, where you were messaging me on, you know, about how it would potentially progress, and then I was asking you questions separately. Okay, now she's experiencing this, she's feeling like this. That really helped me to support her, because there were many things I didn't know what she's going through at this point, how long it's going to go, you know, things to anticipate certain things. And your support independently helped me to say the right things to her and to support her in the right way. And that was a huge help, because I may have unknowingly not been able to support her in the way that she needed. That's the really important part there. It's not important how you think you can give the support. The important part is what kind of support does she need. And I was, you know, through the chats we were having, you know, until I think 4 p.m. and 1 hour before the delivery. I think those really helped me to help her and support her in the way that she needed.
Glad. I think that was exactly what my role was meant to be. I wasn't able to be there physically for you, but like I told you, you will be my eyes and my hands, and then I will be telling you what to do. And it worked.
Right.
It worked. And it worked because of also the relationship that we built. And this is something that's really important. That makes a big difference. Yeah.
And also one thing I'd like to say is never be afraid to have what you want in terms of that kind of support. Like if there's something that you want from your care provider or your doctor, or you want to explain it to them but you're scared of how they'll take it, or that's not a fear that should be there in your mind. You know, you have a right to this experience. This in fact is, as a parent, more so for the mother than for the father, this is your experience, this is your it could be, you could choose to do it once, twice, thrice, it doesn't matter. You have a right to demand what you want of this experience and the kind of support you want of this experience, whether it's your care provider, your husband, your parents, it doesn't matter. This is about you, and you say what you need and you say what you want, and go with your gut and instinct, and make it special, because at the end of the day, this is about you and the child, this is about you and your baby, and both of you need to feel safe and protected and loved. And if you don't, then you can't give the care that you are capable of. Yeah, it's your birth and it's your choice, and make it personal, make it personal, don't just make it an in and out experience, because this is something you'll remember for the rest of your life, and it'll shape who you are, it'll shape what your relationship with your child is, it'll shape your marriage, it'll shape a lot. So make it personal, make it about you, make it about your relationship, and choose it really, really, like make it as important as it needs to be.
Absolutely. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for this beautiful story and all of the wisdom that you have carried with you. And
Our absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
I
truly.
think that I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will be very inspired to hear you. So thanks so much for taking out your time. Being just 1 week old parents, I know it's not easy at all. Thanks so much.
Thank you so
Our
much,
pleasure.
Neha.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank